Good day, everyone. Welcome to Black Logic. President Trump invoked the Home Rule Act to place Washington, D.C. police under federal control and deploy 800 National Guard troops, citing a public safety emergency despite low crime rates. Worldwide demonstrations erupted after Israel killed Al Jazeera journalists in Gaza, raising urgent questions about press safety in conflict zones. Trump signed an executive order delaying the imposition of the steepest tariffs on Chinese imports for another 90 days, buying more time for trade negotiations. Speaking to the press, Trump declared that Hamas can't stay in Gaza, making his position on the ground troops' future in the territory very, very starkly and very, very clear. And we're going to do a breakdown of Hamas because I have yet to really see a comprehensive breakdown of how Hamas actually got started. President Trump invoked Section 740 of the 1973 District of Columbia Home Rule Act to federalize Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department and deploy 800 National Guard troops under his control, citing a public safety emergency and describing D.C. as plagued by bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor. So do not forget that President Trump, his whole war against homeless people in D.C., because majority of the population in D.C. is still Black American at 41%. Closely behind them are white Americans at 37%, because around about 20, 30 years ago, there was white flight from Washington, D.C. because of 70% of the population was Black Americans. And now that they have renovated, they have got rid of a lot of the apartment buildings and made them into condominiums and made it very expensive for majority of the population of Black folk in that area to afford these condominiums. We're talking about rents $3,000, $4,000 a month that you would even be leasing. And don't even get me started with the home price in D.C. Now, it's nothing comparable to California, but no less, it's very, very expensive to actually live in D.C. And I don't mean the surrounding areas. I don't mean the suburbs in Maryland or Virginia. I mean in Washington, D.C., Upper 16th Street, Georgetown. I'm a native Washingtonian, okay, from D.C., born and raised. I went to Highland Elementary School, Draper Elementary School, Hart Junior High, also Cardozo Senior High School. So I am a native and native-born Washingtonian, aka DC. So when we look at these things of how Donald Trump stated, basically on his way to his golf course, that he saw a lot of homeless people in DC and how he wanted them to be eradicated. He wanted them to be removed. Now he's taken a step further, saying there's a lot of crime in DC. No, I think that he's going to use these federalized police officers in a different capacity. He's going to use the National Guard troops in a different capacity. Because when I look at the statistics, either the information that the president is receiving is false, or someone is definitely fudging the numbers. Now, I have many different sources that I look through, family, that this is not the case. Maybe back in 2023, but not current day. The crime rate in Washington, D.C. has plummeted dramatically. We're talking about anywhere from 11 to 15%. So I'm trying to gather, where did he get his numbers from? So instead of just running my mouth, let's just look at some of the statistics here. So this is the latest crime report that has come out by the way of safehome.org. We're going to look at other sources as well. We won't just look at one source. But we're going to gather through here, and some of the things we're going to go over is robbery, rape, aggravated assault, homicide. And again, this is from 2024, but this report was released in December 12th of last year. Of course, there's no current numbers out. We're still in 2025. Now, let's get into some of the places here. Hopefully you can see this on your screen. I'll blow it up as large as I can. Now, when it comes to murder, you see Baltimore, Detroit, and Memphis. Okay, those are some of the most notorious names. And again, when we look at these rates, it states that populations over 500,000. So DC is not even in top three. Do not forget that DC population is roughly around 700,000 people. Okay, 700,000 people. Very small area, but there is a lot of people. I still have my My brother that lives in DC, my sister, a lot of my family members still live in the DC area. Okay. Either they live in DC or the surrounding areas. Okay. My uncle still lives in DC, no less. But again, the population of DC is roughly 700,000 people. I'm rounding up. But Baltimore, Detroit, and Memphis still have higher crime rates when it comes to murder. Look at the rape. Okay, look at the aggravated assaults. Again, you see Memphis and Detroit and Kansas City, robbery. You see Memphis again, Baltimore, Philadelphia. I'm giving you these numbers because, again, we're going to drive home a point here. Burglary, again, we see Memphis, Seattle, Albuquerque, New Mexico. Larceny and theft, San Francisco, Memphis, and Portland. Motor vehicle theft, Denver and Memphis and Portland. The numbers continue to go on. Again, these are the crime in medium cities residents, anywhere from 250,000 to 500,000 people. New Orleans, St. Louis, Cleveland, when it comes to murder, rape. Anchorage, Alaska, Cleveland, New Orleans, aggravated assault, St. Louis, Cleveland, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Robbery, Oakland, California, Cleveland, Minneapolis, Minnesota. Again, and these are medium city rates. Burglary, Tulsa, Oklahoma. Again, we're seeing all these crime statistics of the top cities that have the most crime. Let's go a little bit further here. Now, this is from GetSafeAndSound.com, and they said the top 20 most dangerous cities in the U.S. today. And let's get reference here. This is from July 23 of this year. Okay, this is current crime rates that this website has reported. July 23, 2025. We're only in August, so this is not even a month old. Okay, so I'm trying to provide context here. So Memphis is number one. They are number one in aggravated assault, number two in violent crime rate, and number three in overall crime rate. Memphis, Tennessee, that is. Okay. Let's move on. Second is St. Louis. Third, Little Rock. Fourth, Minneapolis. Fifth, Detroit. Six, Kansas City. Seven, New Orleans. Cleveland. 8, 9, Birmingham. And number 10 is Houston. And I'm not going to read all of them. I'm just going to show you guys here very quickly. I'll scroll down to number 20. And I do not see, the closest thing that I see to DC is Baltimore. Baltimore is roughly 45 minutes from DC. Okay, depending on what point you're coming from, 95, 295, 495, 695, etc. So again, I still don't see DC, and again, their population is well over 500,000 people. Let me continue. Now, also look at the offensive dashboard as I was trying to find out what cities have the highest crime rate, aggravated assault. Okay, and again, I went through all of these line by lines, and I still do not see Washington, D.C. up here. Okay, you see Washington State. Okay, you don't see D.C. at all when it comes to the cities that they're referencing. Okay, now this is coming from usafacts.org. This was the only site that I saw that D.C. was mentioned in the top 5. I couldn't find D.C. in any other of the list, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I want to point that out. I could not find D.C., Washington, D.C., in any other report in the top 5, top 10, top 20. They wasn't even mentioned. You saw the notorious cities that were already mentioned. So again, I'm trying to find justification, again, to the American people of why the president is doing this. Is this about vagrancy? Is he bringing back vagrancy laws? Oh, I was on my way to my golf course and I saw some homeless people. And the majority of the population of DC is once again Black American. Now we know that majority of white people are homeless. They're mostly in Washington, Oregon, and California. So again, I do raise the question, is this racial? Is this about vagrancy? But again, where are you going to put these people who are unsheltered? They have nowhere to go. They have pop tents in cities. Are you going to pave a way? Are you going to allow space for them to habitat somewhere? What are you going to do with these people? Oh, you just want them removed so you don't have to see them. Because if you don't see unsheltered people who are living in squalor, as you say, people who are down on their luck, who are strung out because of their condition, because that's another thing that people don't understand. Sometimes people who are unsheltered don't become homeless because they are addicted to drugs or alcohol or gambling or any of those things, maybe they made a bad investment move. Maybe they got fired from the job and couldn't rebound. Maybe they came out of prison or jail for no fault of their own, no less, and they couldn't find work. There's many reasons why people become unsheltered. But yet again, I look at the Biden administration with a very, very evil eye, because all of these homeless people around the nation, no less, not just Washington, D.C., and you gave 11 million illegal immigrants aid, subsidies, grants, loans, ID, jobs, sanctuary, protection status. So now we have the new president, instead of trying to mend what is broken, try to support citizens. Let's just get rid of them. Get rid of them where? I digress. Now, as I look at this statistical stat here, or this stat sheet rather, from USA Facts, you have Washington, D.C. at number 4 at 35.9 of homicides per 100,000 people. And then you have total homicides at 244. But ladies and gentlemen, let me just tell you, this is from 2023. This is from 2023. And every other report was either from 24 or 25, and Washington, D.C. wasn't even mentioned. That is because the crime rates have been dropping significantly. So I don't know the justification that the president has other than being the president and having the power to wield certain legislation at his own apparel, at his own discretion. Again, the president is a very busy man. Don't get me wrong. He's getting this information from somewhere. Someone's lying, fudging the numbers, or he's just going off on a wild hair and doing exactly what everybody says he's doing, whatever the hell he wants. Because I have no idea why you would have federalized why you would deploy 800 National Guard troops, which again, they are an asset of DC, but he will federalize them, and then federalize DC police. It's almost like Washington, D.C. is going to be under martial law. Now, granted, in case you guys wanted to know the safest cities, or safest states rather, who have the lowest crime rates, Maine, New Hampshire, Connecticut, this is the New England area, Rhode Island, Hawaii, Wyoming, Mississippi, Vermont, New Jersey, Kentucky, Nebraska, Utah, Idaho, Virginia, Minnesota, West Virginia, so on and so forth. So if you guys want to live somewhere in America that they deem safe, then these are the states that you probably want to move to. Now, I've been to Idaho, very nice, very beautiful. Not too much there, so to speak. But again, if you go to Salt Lake City, again, that is a major city. There's a lot going on. I'm sorry, not Idaho. That's Boise, Idaho. I've been there as well, but I've been to Utah as well. Again, these are really nice places to live, but I wouldn't want to live in Nebraska. Again, very beautiful. Just gets kind of cold. And again, a lot of farmland. Kentucky, not my speed. New Jersey. I don't know if you guys have been to New Jersey. New Jersey is a very eerie place. As a matter of fact, when I look at some of the most eerie places that I've ever been, okay, very gloomy, very eerie, it's really New England, Washington, and Oregon. On the West Coast is Washington and Oregon, always an overcast, and it's very dreary, and it's always drizzling. When it comes to the East Coast, it's that New England area. And don't get me wrong, a lot of those areas are really nice. It gets very cold, snow all the time. I'm from DC. I'm used to the snow, but I had to move out, okay? I changed my way of life. I'm somewhere where it's warm, okay? But anyway, I just wanted to point those numbers out to you because, again, I just question the motive of the president. Are you just trying to put DC under federal law where you can control every aspect of the city? Because again, he's taking power away from the DC police chief. He's taking power away from the mayor of DC. And some of you will be like, good, they're not doing anything anyway. Whatever they're doing, it must be working. Crime rates just don't go down like that unless you do exactly what the president is doing. You federalize DC police where you now have control, and you may put someone in charge, okay? Pete Hegseth, I don't know who you're going to put in charge, but you're going to put someone in charge on the federal level. because you're federalizing the police, and you take any jurisdictional power away from the mayor. See, here's a funny thing about Washington, D.C. that a lot of people don't know. It's a really small but big city because all the assets and resources that they have at their own discretion, no less. Because again, they have their own National Guard. They have a mayor. But you know one thing that D.C. does not have? D.C. does not have a governor. This is why the president can do this. See, why wouldn't the president federalize Memphis police? Why wouldn't he deploy Tennessee National Guard for Memphis? So people can start dying. Because I told you guys, Memphis, when it comes to the big cities over 500,000 people, Memphis is in the top 3 on almost everything except rape. When you look at murder, you see Memphis. Aggravated assault, Memphis. Robbery, Memphis. Burglary, Memphis. Theft, Memphis. Motor vehicle theft, Memphis. The only thing that Memphis is not doing is raping. Then again, I know a lot of people are going to contribute this to gangs in Memphis, mostly black gangs in Memphis, no less. But why not deploy the troops here? See, again, not that I'm a conspiracy theorist, because I'm not, but I do. I think everybody in some regards connect the dots, no less. They just, you try to connect the dots. Why not take over Memphis? Why not deploy the Tennessee National Guard of the most dangerous city in America? Is it because they have a governor? Because governors for states are just like presidents of a country. I digress, but I just wanted to point that out to you guys because, again, as this story unfolds, I'm gonna keep you guys updated right here on Black Logic. Please hit that subscribe button as well as a notification bell so you're notified every time I release a video and or go live. But again, these are some of the things that I think we have to question and or analyze of some of the actions of the president, okay? Now, I know you guys been hearing this story about this journalist in Gaza who was reporting on the carnage there, how the IDF actually did a bombing strike on him and his colleagues, and now all of them are now dead. So Israel is now attacking journalists. Now, granted, their claims were that these journalists, or rather the main journalist that day unalive, and that gentleman's picture is right here inside of this lady's hand right here on the left, stating that he was part of Hamas. That is what they stated. Now, this has happened 2 days ago on August 10th. And it states that an Israeli airstrike hit a media tent outside al-Sharif hospital in Gaza City, killing Al Jazeera Arabic correspondent al-Sharif, who was 28 years of age, Mohammed Kirk, 33 years of age, the cameraman Ibrahim Zia, 25 years of age, and Mohammed Nafal, 29, and 2 others, including Sharif's nephew. And the strike occurred around 11:22 p.m. local time. And Israel claimed that al-Sharif was a Hamas operative, but no credible evidence was provided. No credible evidence was provided. And Al Jazeera deemed the attack a premeditated assassination meant to silence journalists. Of course. Do I agree with this? Not until I receive some sort of evidence. Now, there is a particular window of time that I believe that governments, predicated upon their actions, that us, the public, need to give them. I would say 72 hours. Now, some people say that's enough time for them to fabricate the truth, because they already have the information, should they not, of why they did such actions right outside a hospital. This was a targeted attack, stating that he was Hamas fighter and that the other people involved could possibly be connected to Hamas and or they were innocent casualties, but it was worth It was worth the attack. No credible evidence. And the killings spurred mass global protests and vigils with demonstrations held worldwide and growing condemnation from the United Nations and the European Union and press freedom groups. Listen, what Israel is doing, let's just take, for instance, they're justified. But again, they have no credible evidence. Not stating that they don't have evidence, they don't have any credible evidence. Okay, and verification. Now we have the UN being more involved. And believe it or not, this is a good thing for the state of Gaza, for Palestine. Because as we have Australia, Canada, UK, and France recognizing Palestine as a statehood, the only move that I can see going forward is that they deploy United Nations troops in Palestine for protection from the IDF. I believe this is where this is going. It's almost as if they're killing indiscriminately, or they're trying to silence people of what's going on right there in Gaza. They don't want the world to know. Do not forget, they're already preparing for literally a ground invasion of Gaza. And they're stating that, Hamas is still present within the region. And to back those sentiments, President Trump has also backed some of them sentiments, which we're going to actually, let's cover that right now, ladies and gentlemen. Because President Trump on Israel offensive, Hamas can't stay in Gaza. That is what the president states. And this was in a recent interview with Ayox. And President Trump stated that Hamas can't stay in Gaza, asserting that Israel must determine its next moves in the war-torn enclave. He mentioned a good call with Prime Minister Netanyahu, adding the retrieving hostages from Hamas would be very rough under current conditions. Trump stopped short of endorsing Israel's offensive or plans to occupy Gaza City, yet his remarks implied tacit support for such measures. Ceasefire talks mediated by Qatar and Egypt continue behind the scenes in parallel. What in the world is going on? Now, granted, not stating that the president has never contradicted himself, but he definitely contradicted himself with those statements. Because again, and I quote, he stated that it was a good call with Prime Minister Netanyahu, adding that retrieving the hostages from Hamas would be very, very rough, meaning very difficult under the current conditions. Trump stopped short of endorsing Israel offensive or plans to occupy Gaza City. Yet his remarks implied tacit support for such measures. His remarks implied tacit support for such measures. And all the while, Qatar and Egypt, they're trying to mediate peace talks or ceasefire talks. Where's Saudi Arabia? Where's Jordan? And granted, I know, I'm asking rhetorical questions because Saudi Arabia and Qatar and Jordan and a lot of these Middle Eastern countries that are not stepping in, they're in the pockets of the United States of America, and America is in the pockets of them as well. This is why you don't see a lot of these Middle Eastern countries or the so-called United Arab Emirates step in and support Palestine, especially the state and region of Gaza. Because this is about money. This is about wealth. We understand the more land you have, the more resources that you potentially may have, or the more real estate that you can build. Again, land is very important around the world. Take, for instance, Ukraine against Russia. Why are they at war? Why is Ukraine and Russia at war? This to expand the Russian Empire. Why was Pakistan and India at war? Why is Palestine, Gaza, Hamas, and Israel at war? When you look, why is Cambodia and Thailand at war? Have you noticed that all of these wars is based upon one thing, land, and the expansion thereof? And if you don't have any historical referencing or knowing the history, then it'd be very confusing why all of these countries are at war or at conflict, rather. But I'm going to touch on Hamas here in just a bit, but I do want to have you guys to understand what the president has stated. But again, is he going to step in and literally stop the IDF from occupying Gaza? I don't see him doing that. Again, talk is cheap unless you provide action. And again, you see, Prime Minister Netanyahu right here with a smirk on his face. Let me blow this smirk up. I don't want to make this smirk more than what it is, but it looks very, very sinister, does it not? Yes, Mr. President, we're going to annihilate all of them. That's what I get from it. I know it's a stretch. But anyway, now President Trump signed an executive order extending the pause on the steepest U.S. tariffs on Chinese import by another 90 days, averting the scheduled increase and buying time for trade negotiation. And marketers responded with little movement following the announcement. You know, this is getting tiring when it comes to the tariffs, especially with China. We know that majority of things in America, or the majority of things that you buy, like this right here, is made in China. I wonder if these red cups are made in China, made in China. Don't get me wrong. I know negotiations aren't easy. But anytime you put a deadline, you put another deadline, you put another extension, negotiations can go on for a very long time. There's people who are probably still negotiating 10 years out. And maybe the president is receiving information that is constantly changing his mind about how in bed we are with China and the amount of profit that American businessmen are receiving by being in bed with China. But to the American people, either you're getting the deal done or you're not getting the deal done, because again, he stated that all these deals will be done within 90 days of him in office. Well, looks like it's in, I think he got in office, was it January, February, and it's in August. Either way, it's past 90 days. So again, either the prices for products are going to go up or they're going to stay the same, or China is going to incur the back half of those prices. I just wanted to point those things out to you guys because this next segment is going to be focused strictly on Hamas. And to be very, very clear, this is not a story about a militant group. This is a story about history, politics, religion, and a fuse that's been burning for decades, long before the world even knew that Hamas even existed. And if you want to understand the conflict today, you have to understand the storm that birthed it. That's what you guys have to understand, because in Gaza, after the 1967 Six-Day War, Israel now controls the Gaza Strip. And we're going back to the root of it all. Okay. Now, currently, they're preparing for a full-scale ground invasion to occupy Gaza once again. But in 1967, the Six-Day War, Israel was controlling the Gaza Strip, and the land was poor, overcrowded, and it was very tense. But in those years, back in that time, a different kind of force was growing in the shadows, not with guns, but with Qurans, food aid, and charity networks. It was the Muslim Brotherhood that really branched Gaza. And it was led by a paralyzed cleric in a wheelchair named Sharif Hamad Yassan. His organization, Islama, built mosques and schools and clinics. They fed the hungry. They taught the children and provided dignity in a place that was stripped of. It kind of reminds me of the Black Panther Party, no less. And in some regards, the Black Liberation Army. Now, ironically, in those years, Israel authorities allowed, even indirectly supported this, the Islamic network, seeing it as a counterweight to the secular Palestinian Liberation Organization that was the governing body during that time. And the logic was very, very simple. weaken the Marxists, weaken the nationalists, and maybe avoid another war. So here's a spark, ladies and gentlemen. December of 1987, because history has a way of twisting intentions, because on December 8th of 1987, an Israeli truck collided with a car carrying 4 Palestinians, workers in Jalaba, and all 4 died. And that accident lit a powder keg, the first intifada. And believe me, the streets in Palestine erupted. Protests swept through Gaza and the West Bank. Stones flew, bullets answered. And in this chaos, Yassan and 6 close allies met in a very small, crowded room. The decision they made that night would change Middle Eastern politics forever, because they would form a new movement, one rooted in the Muslim Brotherhood ideology, but committed to armed resistance against Israel. They call it Harak, the Islamic Resistance Movement. The world will come to know it by its own acronym, Hamas. Now we're seeing how Hamas actually started. And in 1988, within months, Hamas published its charter. This was no political manifesto with room for negotiation. It was an oath. Israel must be erased. Palestine must be Islamic land, and jihad, holy war, was the only path. The charter was laced with religious language, conspiracy theories, and an unwavering rejection of compromise. It bound Hamas not just to politics, but to an eternal cause for many Palestinians crushed under occupation. Hamas offered more than rhetoric. They offered food, healthcare, and protection in the streets from Israel. They were resistance wrapped in social service. See, Hamas began with small-scale attacks, but the 1990s saw a very violent transformation: suicide bombings, bus explosions, shootings. Israel responded with assassinations and mass arrests. And Yassan was in prison in 1989, only to be released in 1997 as part of a prisoner exchange. Then came 2006, a political earthquake. Hamas won the Palestinian legislative elections, shocking the world and humiliating their rival Fatah. The unity government quickly collapsed into a civil war. By 2007, Hamas controlled Gaza outright. Since then, Gaza has been under their grip, blockaded by Israel and Egypt, plummeted in wars, yet still loyal to a movement that mixes governance with guerrilla warfare. This all goes back what I was stating, that Palestine does not have a unifying body for a government because it's always been split. Because at one point in time, Hamas actually ran the entire region: East Jerusalem, West Bank, and Gaza. So again, you have these 3 land positions that are under the country of Palestine, but you have all these different ruling regimes. This is why we're in this total catastrophe that we're seeing today and all this carnage. And I'm not blaming, don't get me wrong, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not blaming Palestinians. But again, anytime you have a certain people under occupation and being subjugated, and they are a very, very large population like the Palestinians, what do you think we're going to happen? Am I giving just cause? But again, history tells us, not Black logic, history tells us when you subjugate large populations of people, you will have rebellion, you will have resistance. And matter of fact, in current day wars today, myself being a retired United States Marine as well as a United States soldier, I can tell you, when we were in Iraq, we made more terrorists. Anytime you kill accidentally, indiscriminately, it doesn't matter the cause, innocent people who are casualties of wars, let me tell you, you will create terroristic people and terroristic militias. That is the nature of war. Now, in 2017, Hamas issued a new political document, softening some language, saying that their fight with the Zionists, not Jews as a people, no less, the Zionists, not Jews as a people, but the core remain no recognition of Israel, no surrender of armed struggle. And again, this dates back to the UN partition plan that really gained way to have Israel to carve out a piece of land in Palestine in 1947 and thus being settled and constructed in 1948. And if you fast forward to recent years, when you had the October 7th attack in 2023 on Israel that shocked the entire globe, over 1,000 Israelis killed, hostages taken, and Israel striking back with overwhelming force. And leaders like Haniyeh and Sawar became household names, hunted relentlessly. Some were killed, others disappeared underground. But Hamas, like his name suggests, is not just an organization, ladies and gentlemen. Hamas is an idea and ideas, once set in motion by blood and belief. And believe me, ideology don't die easily. And to make this relatable for some folks, I just did a hit piece yesterday on white nationalism, that they're trying to reform and reframe white supremacy. Here's some white nationalists speak, and you already know their core ideology is rooted in white supremacy. There's people in Arkansas and or Alabama trying to create a segregated town, just like they did on Orania in South Africa. So when we look at the birth of Hamas, this wasn't a sudden act. It was decades of oppression that formed ideology and strategic miscalculation and converging into one explosive movement. They went about this, in my opinion, the wrong way. Because you can call yourself a freedom fighter, but when you attack innocent people, because those Israelis on October 7th of 2023, regardless if you deem them Zionists or not, the world, when I say the world, the Western world, the United Nations stated that they could move to that region of Palestine, even though they expanded it through war and conflict. But the people that attack occurred were innocent. The people that were killed were innocent. The hostages taken were innocent. See, your plight is against the Israeli state, the Israeli government. And again, when people see carnage and chaos on a high level, they want to inflict that same pain, that same suffering on your people, so you feel what we feel. And in these regards, feel what they feel. Is that justification for terroristic acts? Absolutely not. I don't condone that, but I understand it. And here's the truth. No sides like to admit. Here's the truth, ladies and gentlemen, and neither side probably won't ever admit it. Every bullet fired, every child buried, every blockade enforced feeds the same cycle that created Hamas in the first place. Until the roots are addressed, until the soil itself changes, you can kill a leader, you can bomb a building, but you can't kill the seed. Because the seed is history, and history in Gaza grows in the rubble that Israel created. This might just help me to understand how some people are stating that Israel is trying to genocide all Palestinians. Because maybe Israel knows that if they don't occupy Gaza, if they don't occupy the West Bank, if they don't occupy East Jerusalem, because of this carnage of these Palestinians, because of the suffering, as well as the starvation of the children and women and men, and all the innocent people who are being affected because of this conflict between Hamas and the IDF in the state of Israel, Hamas will not be decimated. Hamas will not be eradicated. Hamas will grow bigger and stronger behind this. You're going to have some people at their wits' end. And you're going to have people to come to them at their weakest nature with food and water and state, you need to fight with us. We need to fight for our freedom. We have the infidels coming in the ground evasions. They have more powerful weapons. And they're going to conduct guerrilla warfare. This is an easy way how Israel will then again strengthen the numbers of Hamas, if not already. Because when you're starving and you're hungry, you're not getting proper sleep because everything has been destroyed. The place that you once knew no longer exists. I don't point all blame at Israel. I don't point all blame in the birth and how Hamas actually got started, but I do, and it's very hard to state, the causes and reasons of the manifesto of the charter that Hamas made. Again, I do not agree with it. I do not agree with it, ladies and gentlemen. But that does not mean that I don't understand it.